We'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals. If you'll stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call a roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Here.
Amber Brown.
Here.
Jerry Sartain. Gary Farley.
Here.
Renee Curtis.
Here.
Patrick Hill.
Here.
Zane Cantrell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
You have the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes?
I make a motion to accept as
Have a
written.
motion
Yes.
that we approve. Do we have a second? Patrick, seconds.
Second.
Call a roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Yes.
Amber Brown.
Yes.
Gary Farley.
Yes.
Renee Curtis.
Yes.
Patrick Hill.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. Are approved. Okay, we'll get into our agenda. The first item of business, and I always want to say Lewis and Clark.
Me too.
So, but anyway, that's not the historic Lewis and Clark expedition. So we have a request for a special exemption, and this is for an accessory structure before the principal structure. And what do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application BZA 2024-3 involves the location at 109 Quarter Mile Court. Mr. Clark is requesting special exception approval for the establishment of an accessory structure before the principal structure for a property located in the RM Medium Density Residential Zoning District. The site is a 2.10 acre property, and it is part of a subdivision, and they are now proposing to subdivide this lot into two pieces. One piece will contain the existing home, and the remaining piece will contain an existing detached garage. So with that property line being drawn such that the garage is on its own piece of property, it does not have a principal dwelling on it, and therefore he has to have approval in order to keep it and for us to go ahead and sign off on the subdivision plat. It is his intention to construct a home on the property to care for a grandparent who lives in the adjacent home. The structure itself that's in question has been at this location since 2004, and that's just using aerials, but it was modified between 2019 and 2021 with a lean-to roof towards the back of the property. Now, I've spoken with the applicant, and he has agreed to remove that portion. It did not obtain a building permit, and it's just a lean-to roof, and that won't create any kind of encroachment issues that don't already exist. So he has agreed to it, and staff is making a recommendation that if the board does approve this request, that lean-to is removed from the detached accessory structure. We posted a sign on the property. We have received several phone calls in regards to the request. Most of the concerns really didn't have anything to do with the detached garage as much as it had to do with flooding in the area. And as part of our plat review, our engineers do look at the flood zones, the elevations, and so they will require a minimum pad to be shown on the plat if there are any kind of accommodations that need to be made by a future structure. So staff is recommending approval with the conditions. And across the street you have a landscape nursery, but it is zone RM, so it probably has been there for ages. And this is the structure in question. And so he would like the ability to keep the structure on the vacant lot. And as you can see here, this is where that property line is being drawn. This is the existing house, and this is the garage. And that does show that lean-to roof going all the way up to the property line, but he has agreed to remove that roof if approved. And that concludes our presentation.
Any questions of our staff?
I've got a question on when this was originally subdivided back in the early 1990s, if I remember correctly. The lot in question, was this long due to the floodplains at the time? Has that changed any to make this more viable for two residences?
Well, anybody can re-subdivide as long as they can meet our regulations. It wasn't shown as a retention area. However, on the plat, any kind of recommendations that the engineers have made, they'll have to incorporate on the plat to not cause additional issues in the area. So I do realize it was platted originally as one lot, and we assumed that it was because of the drainage issues in the area.
Yeah, I saw some FEMA zones in there, and so I was just curious, that's all. And if something's changed that allows it to be subdivided into a lower density than what it was originally based on the early 1990s subdivision. I remember this one coming through because of the name of the road when I worked for the planning department, so.
Oh, you named the road?
I didn't name the road, but I did address all the
okay.
subdivisions.
I would think if there was a problem with flooding in that area, they would have to make plans for that.
Right, and
Yes,
he's
sir.
got a portion of the property is Zone X, so they'll probably direct any kind of building to that high portion, so.
Any other questions? Thank you. Mr. Lewis B. Clark, would you come around, please, to the forum? Just come around this side. It's all right to have you back to me.
All right.
Do you have any other additional information you'd like to share with the
The lean-to on the back of the garage has already been removed. I have took it down. And the location of the house will be close to the garage in the higher area. And I got Huddleston is the one working on all that for me. So,
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated.
thank you.
We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Come on around, please. Just state your name and then.
Randy Clark, as was my son that was just up here. My mother lives in that house adjacent to it, and my father just passed away last April. And the main reason we was doing this, he was going to build a house anyway, and he had talked with my dad actually before he passed away about building there. And there's, from what I can tell, I'm not an engineer, it looks like, I know that property is not flooded since 1999 when my dad bought the house. I know that. I don't know before that, but since 1999, there's not been no flooding issue at all. But there does have a big area along there's a ditch that runs kind of diagonally across the far end of the property. And according to, I'm thinking that American Homes, I can't remember the guy's name that built the houses over there. He had intentions on building another house there, and he asked my dad if he would be interested in buying the property, because the then property couldn't be built on. But I think they could have built one next door. But that's where he asked my dad. My dad just went ahead and bought it. So I don't. It doesn't appear to me in the last 25 years there's been no issues of flooding at all.
Okay, see if there are any questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on this? Mike?
I move we approve.
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Yes.
Amber Brown.
Yes.
Gary Farley.
Yes.
Renee Curtis. Patrick Hill. Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item we have is a request by Pamelo Corbello, and this is a special exemption for an establishment of an accessory structure. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2024-4 involves the property located at 1010 Rutledge Drive. It's a request for special exception approval to allow an accessory dwelling unit involving a property located in the RM zone. And the reason that the applicant is coming before you is that the site measures .73 acres, and automatically, if it's less than an acre, anyone who wishes to place an ADU on their property must obtain special exception. And so the applicant actually wants to, this is the attached garage, which has been finished out, but the applicant would like to add a kitchenette to allow a family member to live in it and have their own apartment. She's not proposing any other changes for the accessory dwelling unit other than interior changes. And the size of the accessory dwelling unit meets the size limitations for attached ADUs. The sign was posted on the property, and we received several phone calls. No one indicated any opposition. They just had questions as to why the sign was placed up. And the applicant is here to answer any questions you might have. We find that the request meets the criteria and recommend approval.
Any questions? Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. Give us your name and any information you'd like to share.
All right, my name is Pam Corbello. It's as the staff explained it, and we just want to finish out our garage and put a kitchenette and a bathroom. So that's-
This is for family members, is that right? Any questions? Thank you. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Entertain a motion on it.
Motion to approve with conditions.
Second.
Call a roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Yes.
Amber Brown.
Yes.
Gary Farley. Renee Curtis. Patrick Hill.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item, we have a request by Vogue Towers, Cellco Partnership, and Verizon Wireless. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2024-5 involves the property located at 6155 New Salem Highway. They are requesting special exception approval for the establishment of a monopole communications tower measuring 125 feet in height with a 5-foot lightning rod upon a property located in the CS Commercial Services Zoning District. And they will be leasing a portion of this landscaping company that has been established. They'll be leasing this portion of property in order to establish the 125-foot tower. Now, the tower itself, if approved tonight, would have to go through site plan review, and we would verify that landscape requirements and any other requirements that would be determined compliant during the site plan review. Though the applicant has supplied us with a study saying that the tower is designed to fall upon itself, and so it will be located, I think, at its closest point, 73 feet to the nearest property line. So they've designed the tower to fall upon itself, and there's an engineer certification that's involved. They've also included 4 additional antennas on the tower to provide co-location opportunities. And as part of the zoning ordinance, ever since we started processing these telecommunications towers, we've asked the applicant to provide a third-party review by a qualified individual to determine that all of our requirements for communication towers that have been adopted are met. And they provided a third-party expert report by Victoria Farmer, and she's deemed it compliant with all of our regulations. Surprisingly, I don't recall receiving one phone call on this application. That doesn't mean someone else in the office didn't get it, but you do have residential in this area. It's at the entry of this Clear Ridge Drive, I think it's Clear Ridge subdivision too. And you have a Dollar General and some retail along the frontage of New Salem Highway, and then you have a vacant lot that's zoned commercial. But we find that the request meets the criteria, and that concludes our presentation.
This is in a commercial service zone.
It is, but still requires special
There's
exception
really
approval.
not a lot that we can do with these towers because they are pretty well governed by the federal and state governments. There are a few things that we can look at, but they're pretty well self-sufficient in getting these places where they have communications. And if you didn't have all these cell phones, we wouldn't be dealing with this.
I got a question, and Danielle, you may not be able to want to answer it. The applicant or someone may be the one. But it says here, is this just for Verizon Wireless or any other carriers?
I'm not familiar with the process, but usually you have people that erect the towers, and maybe they've been approached by a client, and then they lease out other spots. That would be something that the applicant might be able to answer better.
Yeah, because I know there's a need for. I live out in that area, and not that far out, but there is a need for that because there are some dead spaces big time out there.
Do we have anyone here representing this? Go ahead, Mike.
I would also like to point out that this would be beneficial to the county as a whole because we have 3 schools nearby and a brand new public safety center right next door also. So.
We have someone here representing this. If you'll come on forward, please. See if there are any questions.
Good evening. My name is Michael Sandifer, project manager for Vogue Towers. And here to answer any questions you have. I can start with yours. So Vogue Towers is essentially a property management company. If you think of it as a shopping center, theirs is just vertical. And so what we showed in the drawings on the tower elevation, that this can hold up to 4 spots complete. The reason why Verizon's a co-applicant is this is based on their need right now. So the goal would be, in a perfect scenario, that you might have AT&T, T-Mobile and Dish, everyone, but the space is available and built for that. It's just a matter of whether or not they have a need right there.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. You'll come around, please.
Good evening. Hey, Gary. My name is Rose Klein. I live right next door to the project we're talking about, 117 Clear Ridge Drive. We originally owned the property there when we first moved. We sold it to Shane Fogel, Greenbrier Nursery. It was zoned residential, and it was a non-buildable lot. And when we sold it and subdivided it, it became lot number 69 in our subdivision. So you're correct, it was a part of a subdivision. We only go by the county rules and regs. We don't have a homeowners. One of our concerns was liability, and I believe, Danielle, you said that we were the closest building was 70-some feet from the tower.
The closest property line
Closest property line? Okay, not structure.
No.
Okay. Okay. We wanted to ask what the liability was in case of any damage caused by the tower, in case of God interfering in the weather or whatever. And one of the biggest things was, like Mr. Curtis brought up, was that we're so close to the high school and the EMS station. Why was this not put on their property, since that is county? The EMS station is county, as far as I know. And it would benefit them. And I have worked the election commission at Rockville Middle School, and yes, the coverage is terrible. One bar. Now, my house, which is right across 150 feet from the school, I'm fine. I get no problem. So,
Their concerns.
yeah, no, just that I'm assuming that that land is now commercial and not residential.
It's commercial.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ma'am, my name's Alan Cupid. I live at 108 Dalton Circle, which is kind of just around the way, but I live in the Clear Ridge community. I think I'm kind of here on an advocacy for them in a sense. We haven't even talked, to be honest with you, but I think part of my concerns as well as theirs is just kind of, what happens if the unit does fall. It's supposed to fall on itself. It's designed, but God has his own ways. Kind of here just to voice my opinion of it. We didn't get a lot of say about DG and some of these other things that come into the front of our neighborhood, essentially, and it is kind of what it is. Same thing, we had BZA hearings or zoning hearings about the properties and the developments that have been coming in and around us from Murfreesboro encroaching in on us a little more as well. I feel as well that there's probably a better location for it. Over on, like you said, the EMS place is right there, the school is right there. I feel like there's probably plenty of property in those locations that could accommodate this. I believe that it is an eyesore to our community. Our location of where we're at is going to be 125 feet right in the front of our community when you pull in, and I feel like that has some value to our property. I know that the property across from that floods. It's not too long ago, we just had a nice little lake sitting there, and that water flows across to the other community there, or into Shane Vogel's, the landscaping companies. There's a huge culvert there that holds quite a bit of water as well. So that means you guys are going to have to build that landscaping up, I'm assuming, correct? Is that a assumption? Am I right? Can I ask that question to him?
Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't know how that works. So, I mean, is that correct? You'll have to build that up, right? Is that not correct? Yes. I'm sorry? I don't know how this works.
Go ahead with your presentation.
Okay.
We're not here to question them.
Oh, well, I just didn't know. So assuming then the landscaping in that location is going to have to be built up. And where I live on Dalton and where many of my neighbors live on Dalton, the properties there used to flow really well. And all this development has changed that. So I feel that there's a concern with if you're adding more landscaping to that hole that's there that's already not draining as it should, and the more that's across the street and so on and so forth, we're just not managing the water properly, is what I feel. And then, of course, again, it does come down to, it's right up against their property. I'm certain that would, hold some value. If it was any of you guys, you'd feel the same way if it was putting 75 feet to 100 feet right up against your house. So I feel like it should be a better place to put it than in our neighborhood.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Two things just to share with you. We don't really have a choice on where they place these cell towers. So that's strictly within the federal and state guidelines. And as far as our concern is, it does meet the requirements that we have for a cell tower. Do we have anybody else? still a public hearing. Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I also add too, I understand, I mean, I used to represent that area as our county commissioner out there, so I understand, and I know about the drainage and all that stuff out there. And you're right, federal guidelines ties our hands on how this happens. I want to also address something about the location. I'm not aware that the county was approached to put one on county property out there, so that would probably be why the county is not involved as far as the location. So, but with that being said, and I understand the concerns that those people out there have, but with our hands being tied, I'm going to make a motion that we approve it.
We have a motion to be approved.
I'll second it.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Call a roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Yes.
Amber Brown.
Yes.
Gary Farley.
Yes.
Renee Curtis. Patrick Hill.
Yes.
Zane Cantrum.
Yes, it is approved. Do we have anything else to come for us? Well, this was a record meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you.